The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. The 2024 Cup Series schedule has been released. We'll take a look at some of the biggest changes that are headed to the Cup Series next season. Welcome, everyone. I'm Kim Coon, joined by Nate, Ryan, and Dale Jarrett. We have been waiting for this to happen. We now know where the Cup Series is headed in 2024, and perhaps one of the biggest changes, Atlanta Motor Speedway. It moves to the second race of the season, so we'll see back-to-back drafting tracks to kick off 2024, and then it becomes the first race of the playoffs. So, Nate, I'll start with you. What jumps out at you as you look at Atlanta on the 2024 schedule?
I think obviously that it follows the Daytona 500, so now you have this situation where you have two drafting tracks back-to-back to open the season, which could be hairy for teams that are involved in the crashes that are inevitable at drafting tracks, especially Daytona. We've seen it since Atlanta Motor Speedway was reconfigured a couple of years ago, where it's been a drafting track as well, pack racing. One mistake can collect a lot of cars. So I think there's going to be a lot of concern for teams going into Atlanta next year, worried about, like, will our fleets be intact? Because after that, you go on the West Coast swing, as it were, to Vegas, Phoenix. So I think there are some question marks there. And of course, opening the playoffs now, that adds just another layer entirely, because that means there's two drafting tracks now in the playoffs. So both front side and back side regular season playoffs, I think you got a lot going on.
Yeah, I'll pick up on the part of it being the first race of the playoffs. I like the idea there. I think it brings a level of excitement. This racetrack is continuing to wear some. So even though it will still be a drafting track, if you will, handling is going to be coming into play even more, especially in that second race. I'm just wondering who at Atlanta made the schedule makers mad that they would be racing there in February. I can remember getting snowed out there when we used to race in March. So I just, as a driver, a cold track, a fast race track, and radial tires, that has never been a good combination. So we'll see how this goes. Plus, I just feel for the fans. The drivers are going to be in a warm condition regardless of what the temperature is. It's going to feel pretty decent inside the race car. But, I'm sure that they looked at this and thought about it. But, this race has become such a big event. Dale Jr. talked about it on the last telecast that we had with the race there, about how this has now become one of the races that you tell people to go see because of the excitement that we've seen. Who's going to go there and watch in February? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, DJ, it was in the middle of the summer and was one of the hottest races of the season. So perhaps a welcome change to the fans that stuck it out when we saw the heat at Atlanta. Another big line item in the 2024 schedule was the addition of Iowa Speedway to the Cup Series schedule. And I know fans and industry alike have been clamoring for this for years. Now we're finally getting it. So what can we expect as the Cup cars go racing in Iowa?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that, over the years, we've seen great racing there, whether it was the Xfinity Series, the IndyCar Series. This is one of those racetracks that drivers talk about wanting to race on worn out racing surfaces. Exactly what you have in Iowa. There are two at least lanes to race in, and we see three wide racing there quite often. So I'm looking forward to this. The fans have always supported this race and anything that's going on there. I think it has potential to be an outstanding event for the Cup Series this year, or in 24.
And I'm curious, DJ, as to what we'll see externally. Internally, I think the racing there has always been great. The progressive banking is great. But the last couple of years, I've actually been to Iowa Speedway because the IndyCar Series has raced there. Doubleheader weekend in July. They brought in a ton of big musical acts. Hy-Vee was the weekend title sponsor, and they spent more than $10 million bringing the musical acts, sprucing up the track. You can see here in that shot right there that there's new grandstand suites in turn 4 and turn 1. The track really has improved, I think, aesthetically under IndyCar the last couple of years with Hy-Vee's help. I'm curious what it'll look like for NASCAR, because NASCAR owns this track. But again, those have been IndyCar Hy-Vee capital improvements have been made. The IndyCar race is actually a month later than the NASCAR race in 2024. So it's interesting to me. Will NASCAR put the same amount of investment into the promotion, into the grandstands, into the suites that we've seen there with IndyCar the last couple of years?
Other notable items included Darlington now becomes the regular season finale. We also will see Watkins Glen shift into the playoffs. So as you looked at the schedule collectively for next year, maybe what are you most excited for, or what was the biggest surprise to you? Nate?
Yeah, I think just to echo what DJ said earlier, I mean, Atlanta opening the playoffs and having 2 super speedways in the playoffs and having 2 road courses as well. I like the idea of moving Watkins Glen into the playoffs. I don't know if I love the idea of the Roval returning because the next gen is raced so well at 1.5 mile tracks. I would have liked to have seen 2 oval races for Charlotte Motor Speedway. But in terms of the impact in the playoffs, to have 40% of the playoffs now be super speedways and road courses, X factors galore, especially in the first 2 rounds.
I'll echo that, Nate. No doubt about it. The 2 things that I look at that jump out to me, Bristol, no dirt, back on concrete for 2 races. Love that idea. But the best thing in the world that happened when I looked at the schedule and heard this happening, Indianapolis Motor Speedway back on the oval. The guys actually get to race at the Brickyard and try to win the Brickyard 400.
Thanks for watching NASCAR America Motormouths, presented by Toyota.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.